We'll just get going, I think.
Yeah, because you know who doesn't stop? Chris Hemsworth.
Boom.
Wow. Yes, and we are going to extract some knowledge from Mr. Hemsworth and his latest Netflix movie. What are you doing there with your fingers there,
I was
Don?
I was I was wringing a towel, a wet, sweaty towel. I'm sorry. That doesn't go with extraction. Yeah.
No, it looked like you were doing the obscene gesture that we all learned growing up for the naughty bits.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, sorry.
Which, if that's your Chris Hemsworth, experience, that's no judgments, but
I have to pay extra for that, and I'm not Emmanuel with my convention money. I can't pull that off. I
wow.
can't.
Well, so let's do this. Let's get this out of the way because I tend to save this for the end. We're
Mhm.
here tonight or today, whenever you're listening / watching this, with Don Shanahan of Every Movie Has a Lesson and Emmanuel Noisette of EMan's Movie Reviews, .coms for both of them, and various other media outlets for both of them as well. Yeah, EMan, I just gotta say you've been killing it with these YouTube podcasts, the recap.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I felt like I wanted to be like you. I've always said I want to be like you when I grow up. So, this was me putting it into practice. And, it's just one of those things to try something new and just have a reason to talk about stuff that, wouldn't normally get to talk about. So, yeah, it's good. It's a fun time.
Yeah, and you're following the number one, from what I understand, rule of launching any new podcast is you're being consistent. It's
Ah,
coming out
yeah.
weekly. I think you put them out on Sundays, right? Or are they on Saturdays
Yeah,
sometimes? I feel
yeah.
like I catch it on Sundays mostly.
It's usually on Sundays. I try to make it, I try to go as soon as the news slows down. So
Mm.
typically it slows down on Friday, Saturday, but sometimes Saturday, because of the quarantine, big news tends to drop. So I'm like, all right, let me squeeze this into this episode, which pushes it later. But yeah, Sunday, no later than Monday, you will get it.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll definitely keep checking it out. And I I didn't listen to the last one because I have not had a chance to watch The Last Dance yet.
Okay.
But
I don't ruin
but
anything in there. I don't,
okay.
not in that episode.
Okay. How many parts is it? It's a multiple part thing, right? Or is
Yeah,
it just the two?
it's 10 parts, but
10.
we get
Wow.
two every week, so five, sessions. And it's
Okay.
coming to Netflix in June or July, I want to say.
I
So,
saw you
That's
break
when
that
I'll catch it.
news. Yeah,
hmm
me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
So I think I'll just listen to all the hype, and just kind of jump on that train later. I'll catch the Netflix version of it. But speaking of Netflix, we are talking about a movie that drops today. If you're listening to this on April 24th, Extraction, starring, as Don mentioned and gestured earlier, Chris Hemsworth. I feel like uh, this is a cosmic coincidence, I'm sure, but it's like in lieu of any Marvel movies actually coming out, we have a movie starring Thor and co-written by Joe Russo, who's
hmm
wrote a graphic novel. I think it was called Ciudad, that this is based on, and it very much feels like a big screen, crazy action movie. It's very slick. It's kind of got that John Wick vibe to it, but also at the same time, I was completely content watching this on my TV. I don't know. I feel like we're in that weird space now where movies that might have had a chance coming on the big screen are hitting the small screen, but there's no really way to tell, oh, I feel deprived. Like this would have been so much better on the big screen.
There's some action sequences in this where I wish I could have had a big screen to let me twist and turn and chase Chris Hemsworth in the back of a car down some hallways and balconies and punch some people with some big sound. The way I know we all watched John Wick 3 together about, gosh, almost a year ago at this time. And that was a fun communal experience of everyone, reacting to bones cracking and shots being fired. I think we would have heard some audible dams and wows in a theater during watching this movie. So I wish I could pay a Sunday matinee to go see this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. Like the matinee quality is as high as I'd put this one. And it was right along those lines of, yeah, I wouldn't mind watching some of those things, but I was very happy to watch it at home, just on my TV at my leisure. And this is not an indictment against the movie, but I fell asleep, halfway through it.
Oh,
Wow.
And that's only because I was watching it late at night. But again, I was happy that like, oh, I could start over and watch it again. So it was fine. I like that convenience. It worked.
Now, did you like the next day, did you go back and start from the beginning, or did you just pick up where you left
no.
off?
No, I just picked up
Okay.
where I left off. I left off on I fell asleep on the more dramatic scenes, where it started to mellow out a little bit, and I was just like, nope, good night, but it was fine later.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I was surprised by how much drama there was in this movie, and I feel like there's just enough to set this film apart from a lot of other types of action movies that we've seen, that I was very surprised how much I really loved this movie. I don't know what y'all's reaction to it was, but I felt like I was kind of in trouble at the beginning where we first meet Chris Hemsworth, who's like this famous mercenary, and he's sleeping in Australia, like in the woods with some people, and then a friend of his wakes him up, and he just dives off this like 1,000,000-foot cliff, and then we cut to him underwater in like this Zen like lotus position, meditating.
Yeah.
I'm like, now he's Doctor Strange. I don't know, I don't know what's happening here, but yeah. And then he's sort of a lethal weapon character. He's got the tragic past and the secret that's gradually and then all of a sudden revealed. He's kind of running from his keeping occupied, saving people for money because he can't face the tragedy in his life. We'll go full spoilers here, but not quite yet. Yeah, it's got all those kind of cliched elements to it, but there is a level of humanity that's placed in just the right spots that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Like his arch rival in the film, who turns out to sort of be on his side at the end. There was a bit of tenderness to, he's not just a bad guy who's competing for this mercenary prize. He's got some real motivation, some real stakes there too. I know we haven't really outlined the plot at all, but I want to kick this off by asking, I think it was David Fowley who pointed this out. Maybe you guys knew this before. Had you read the comic book that this was based on?
I have not. No, not at all.
Nope.
I knew it was a Russo thing, but I had not. I know
Okay.
it's set like in Paraguay instead of in India, which makes for a casting and a location change. I like that it moved to India. I think we've seen enough, Sicario style Central and South American hostage, cartelly one, whatever you want to call it, movies where this is a nice change of pace to see a different location. But I had not read the comic. EMan, did you?
No. Same, and I share that same sentiment. I'm glad this wasn't the what is that color that the sequoia color
Sepia.
tint? Sepia. There you go. Sepia color tint, and in Mexico in the back alley somewhere with the cards. Yeah, I'm glad that I appreciated the new change of scenery and everything. But no, I didn't read the comic. I was tempted to, because once I learned about it, I was kind of like, oh, well, let me just see if there's some background. But what I wanted to gauge with this movie was whether or not it could stand without that background knowledge. And I don't think a lot of the things you mentioned earlier, Ian, about, just having a tortured past and, just Hemsworth character, his character in general. Like, I was just like, it feels hollow, feels empty. A lot of those things, yes, they're the flashbacks and the tortured past and stuff, but I'm like, I just met you. And I don't know anything. It's like, am I supposed to care? Like, so. But no, I didn't venture into the comic. And I wonder if the comic would have given me some more background to help me care more. But I don't know.
Or if it
Fair
could have been a
question.
situation where it's an all action comic that they had to flesh out because they're making a movie, add some more of that dimension to it. That's very.
Oh, speaking of which, I don't know if you guys saw this. I accidentally came across this. Do you guys know who was supposed to play the role instead of Chris Hemsworth?
Oh no, Keanu Reeves.
No, think bigger. Think bigger, literally bigger.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson is my guess.
Bingo. He was supposed to be originally cast for it, but oh God, what movie did he do? He opted to do something else.
Hobbs and Shaw is my guess too.
it was something in like 2015, I want to say, when they were
Oh,
throwing this around.
yeah.
So, but I just thought that was kind of cool. Like, yeah, I could totally see The Rock doing this movie.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't think it would have been any different, but all right, fine.
Yeah.
I think it would have been different, only because The Rock is a different kind of personality than I think Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth has that. Maybe it's because I can't shake him as Thor. The earlier versions of Thor, and even the Thor from Avengers Endgame. I kept seeing a lot of that in this performance because I feel like he took that drunk Thor, that depressed Thor. He was still kind of carrying that over, and that helped to sell this idea that he was sort of a broken man. Yeah, a lot of his backstory is cliched, but I think the performance really sells it. The Rock, I feel like he's gonna, be smiling and kind of like one-lining it throughout this movie, whereas there's
That
more gravitas with Hemsworth, and
that that
I
could
wouldn't
Yeah.
very
need that in
well.
this movie. Yeah,
No, that could very
He,
well
like
be the case, and I think your sentiment is very warranted because a lot of the production and the cast came from Avengers Endgame.
yeah.
The director, he did a lot of stunts with them, and some of the other cast as well. So that vibe certainly could have carried over.
Yeah, that's your Marvel connection here. Is this is Sam Hargrave? He's a first-time film director, but he's a long-time stunt coordinator, head stunt coordinator in the last two Avengers movies, stunt coordinator in second, additional photography, and he's got 80 stunt credits. So,
jeez.
and you wonder how, and he's not the first guy to do that. I mean, our John Wick directors came from the stunt coordinator tree of filmmaking. You go all the way back to Hal Ashby coming from the stunt, director tree and
Uh,
all that. So, you
Atomic
know,
Blonde.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could be done, and those guys have a fantastic eye for being economical with the way they do practical stunts, or even just move the camera around and get things together. And I think Sam did a good job because I think because you feel there's a stunt coordinator here, you're just going to get balls to the wall action, and for him to at least squeeze in a little bit of pathos and drama here was pretty decent. I think that's where Russo helps, being able to adapt his own comic and even adapt it to a different setting. I think he was able to kind of give the first time director a good blueprint. I also think what really helps is you hire an absolute stud of a DP, and that's Newton Thomas Siegel, the longtime Bryan Singer coordinator or collaborator. And I mean,
Oh,
that guy knows what he's doing on the camera. Where you hire a stud there and not a rookie to help a rookie director, and you have the lenses in the right places, and then you have the script in the right place too. So
speaking of, well, this isn't so much a script question, but it is a stunt and storytelling question. There is a scene in I want to say it's the middle of the movie. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. That extended cut together to look like one continuous shot action scene that starts with a car
yeah,
chase and ends with it like ascends into an apartment building and ends up back on the street. Did
yeah,
either of you clock how long that was? Because it felt like it was like 17 minutes long.
I
yeah.
didn't.
I
I,
I
I mean,
didn't
I
clock
didn't
it, but
clock
it
it.
felt
Yeah,
it felt substantial though.
I
I
liked it.
was I was
Yeah.
glued to my seat, impressed.
Hmm. Hmm.
I I was taken out of the movie a lot during it, but I felt like I'd want to watch this movie again at some point, and I won't have that problem next time because I kept trying to figure out. It's sort of like Hitchcock's Rope, where it's one long. I think it's like three takes really, because they had to change film essentially, so he would bury his edits, really cleverly. I kept looking at that because the camera moves and what they do is so impossible in terms of like weaving in and out of vehicles and following characters on the different points of view. I kept looking for, okay, is this where they cut it and stitched it together? Or is this somehow, are they doing this with drones and it really is one crazy long, amazingly choreographed shot? I mean, it's breathtaking stuff. And it's all so different that it's not just like, oh, it's a car chase. It's a car chase and a foot chase and going up apartment building steps and people getting thrown over balconies and down onto the street. It is pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, I was impressed. From a movie that started out as all right, Chris is a badass, and we get that first big kind of gunfight, hand fight scene where he, rescues the boy from whatever the first place he was, held in. And, it's a single setting thing. Looks like something out of John Wick where you're in one room and he just tears the place apart. And you're like, all right, that's pretty cool. Seen a little bit of that before. But like you said, once they hit that street and they start cutting that big scene together, I was hook, line, and sinker entertained for sure. That was awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the part that kind of got me was because I was sitting there thinking about where those cuts were, but then I was also thinking to myself, like, how did you guys shoot this? Because there was one scene that like really got me, and it was something where it was like they were running, I think, to get into one of the cars, and one way or another, we go from like seeing the bad guys, chasing them and everything, and then we jump right into the back seat of the car while it's moving. And I'm like, how did you do that? And I'm just more excited to see the behind the scenes of how they shot that more than anything. But yeah, I mean, like the cinematography in this film, like just raised all the action to another level. And one thing that really stood out to me was just the work that Hemsworth put into this. I mean, it could be really easy for a lot of these actors to, let a stunt double come in and do the work. But similar to a John Wick, or Keanu Reeves and John Wick, they really do try to nail those performances. And I think Hemsworth was on Jimmy Kimmel earlier doing an interview about the movie, and he was just talking about how physically exhausting, this really was, and it looked physically exhausting. I was getting tired for him. I'm like, how can you keep going? But I really appreciate it because it's anytime you can get those long continuous shots. I mean, my goodness, it just raises the genuine, authentic, level to just new heights, and I loved it.
That's the fun thing with Hemsworth is like, I also credit his work in this too because like, and I know this is a weird little acting thing. It's like actors who are good at eating food on camera, but I don't know how Hemsworth does it, but he's really good at like taking punches and making those like like pro wrestler sounds of like, selling a hit. And he's really, really good at that and he's got the sweat and the dirt and the face and the hair that moves out of the way. Like, you're right. I mean, I don't know what he did to be a stunt double or to kind of to pull those scenes off and still put makeup in there and all that, but he sells it. And like you said, Ian, when it came to casting, he's not there with an eyebrow raising and a cheesy one-liner when he's done. He just takes the hit, gruffs it off, wipes himself off, and keeps going. He doesn't have some cheesy one-liner. He just kicks ass.
Which is good. Yeah. That's very highly appreciated. Yeah.
Now, I want to put a pin in this, and please don't let me forget it, because this is kind of spoilery, but I want to talk about it at the end. I loved him in this movie, and I kind of want to see more. I don't know if we would be able to see more. Maybe we can. I'm talking about a sequel. So, let's put a pin in that. We'll come back to it because I got some questions. I want to get your interpretation. But yeah, so the plot of the movie essentially is we start off with the teenage son of an Indian drug kingpin gets kidnapped because his minder essentially tells him, go study in your room and, I'll see you later. Kid sneaks out with a bunch of his friends, goes to a club, gets kidnapped by a gang who was hired by a Bangladeshi drug kingpin who's now holding him hostage. And it starts off this crazy rivalry. There is, Chris Hemsworth's character, Tyler Rake, which is definitely a comic book name, I guess. Yeah. He gets hired to extract the kid. The problem is when he goes into Bangladesh, it is so under the thumb of this rival drug lord that the guy is able to lock down the entire city, like canal ports and roads and nothing in or out, essentially. So it's him and this little 15-year-old kid who's a tremendous actor, I thought, by the way, I'm going to butcher his name, is Rakesh Jaiswal, I don't know, playing Ovi. But he's not just like this helpless little sidekick or, he's not cracking one-liners either. You get the feeling that they just pulled him off the street and said, hey, follow Chris Hemsworth around while people are shooting at you and we're going to record your expressions. But yeah, so it's a classic trying to get out of a, like an escape from New York. It's an escape from Bangladesh, kind of a situation. And a lot of this is, this kind of street level violence where the drug kingpin, I think character's name is Asif. He's hiring everybody to be in his, gang or his employ. The first time we meet him is one of the best and most chilling villain introductions I have seen in a while, where they're basically on a rooftop and his henchman has like 10 little kids cornered on this roof. And he's just like, okay, which one of you took my money? Nobody answers. So the henchman picks up the littlest kid and throws him off the damn roof. It's not like, I'm okay. No, you hear him scream all the way down and then a thud. Yeah, it was hard to watch. In fact, I had to rewind and go watch that again because I think I was taking a note. I'm like, wait, did that just happen? But no. So, and then the next kid basically stands up and says, I know who took your money. It was the kid you just threw over the side. Now, whether or not it was true, that's up for interpretation. But this guy, who's probably about, I don't know, 15, 17, he's got such great character in his face. He doesn't look like an actor. And I don't know if that was a real, like, horrible knife scar he had across his face or if this was a prosthetic or something. But he shows up throughout the movie as the kid who wants to prove himself to the big bad boss man, including a confrontation he has with Chris Hemsworth's character. And when Tyler Rake comes across these little kid gangsters, you can tell he understands that he's in horrible danger, but he's also kind of sad that he's fighting these little kids with machetes and guns, and he deals with them sort of with kid gloves as much as he can. I don't know if he actually he definitely cripples some kids in this movie, but I don't think he actually kills anybody.
I was very okay with those scenes. I was very okay with him kicking the butt of those little kids because they clearly needed some sort of parental guidance of some sort, I guess. And if you're gonna go to war, you're gonna get hurt. And this is that's that harsh, awakening that I think the movie kept on repeating. Because if you notice, he kept on finding little kids with guns or that were running with these gangs, and he kept, sparing them, in a sense. But yeah, hey, if you need a little wake up call, he's got a size 15 boot for you, and there you go.
Yeah, it reminded me of a movie from 2004 called City of God, which is very similar to this movie, but that's mostly from the kids' point of view, and they're like, little murderers. It's very you get to see what they actually do with those guns and machetes when they're not up against Chris Hemsworth. It's pretty sad, but yeah, I appreciated, much like we were talking about earlier, how it's not just, Mexican drug lords or South American, drug cartels. This whole idea of the India, Bangladesh underworld is not something that we get to see a lot in American action movies. And I think it was kind of a cool, fresh perspective that's also kind of got these grim real world undertones to it.
Yeah, like we said before with the setting change, this was a cool thing to do and a different thing to do, and you can tell from a production standpoint, it gave a lot of opportunity to a ton of actors who normally would never get in a Hollywood movie. So many either Indian or Bangladeshi actors, or even these first timers who, debut roles in films like that kid Farhad with the face scar, like our little guy Ovi Jr. and all that. So really cool to just get these folks, some time, and not all the characters are completely made to be one dimensional. Like he's got his fence, like Nick, I think she's I'm gonna butcher her name, but Golshifta Farhani, she was in the movie Patterson. She's kind of like his fence, that kind of gets him into his little superior boss, and she has a little bit of something going on in terms of just an extra role that isn't just a meme. She's not just M from James Bond. She's not a damsel in distress either, So like she can get her hands dirty and get out there and all that. So yeah, I appreciated the diverse setting where, okay, fine, this is a glamour project for Hemsworth to a degree, but you still, to get that glamour, you still paint a fantastic picture around him.
Yeah, and also Saju, played by Randeep Hooda, was the minder that I mentioned earlier, who, when he goes back to his boss and says, yeah, I'm sorry your son snuck out and now he's been kidnapped, his boss is like, well, go get him. It's like
Or I kill
you
her
understand
else.
yeah, he's like, what? Yeah, like, you understand what you're asking me to do. It's like, I don't care. You think because I'm behind bars, I can't kill your family. But it's, again, we see we get some brief scenes of him and his family and what they mean to him. And he's trying to look out for his wife. He's like, look, if you don't hear back from me by this time tomorrow, just drop everything and run because it's going to get really bad. And he's got a little moment of an exchange with his young son. It's great. And that stuck with me throughout the rest of the film because he doesn't just stay a bad guy who's desperate. He ends up, they end up sort of on the same side during the spectacular bridge finale, which the movie opens with. It teases us. I was kind of like, I'm not necessarily a fan of this,
Yeah.
That 2 days earlier, and then we're going to bookend back to this thing. But it really worked in this case because it was like a half-hour version of the traffic jam scene from Heat, where the bank heist has gone bad and they're just running through traffic with machine guns. But when that all goes down, and you've got these desperate characters in this sort of a wild bunch scenario where they know they're not getting out of there alive, or at least there's a glimmer of hope. Knowing that we've spent time with them and we understand what's at stake for them personally, it's not just about getting money or getting out alive. They're really kind of fighting for something, and I thought it was kind of beautiful.
I think the other thing.
Oh,
Go ahead,
okay.
EMan.
I was just going to slightly disagree. I did not care for that as much, only because I thought it kind of disrupted the focus of the film. A lot of times I was sitting here thinking, like, wait, is this movie about Hemsworth's character or is it about both of these guys? Like, who am I really supposed to care about? And I think it was a little imbalanced in that sense. I was actually very okay with them highlighting, the other guy and his family and the threat, and like putting him in a compromised situation. Like, I was okay with that, but we don't see him for like another quarter of the movie. And then I'm sitting here thinking, like, wait a minute, if you really are there for the best interest of the kid and stuff, why are you going after, Tyler in that way without trying to negotiate and stuff? So wait, is he a bad guy now, or does he actually care about the kid? Or, so it was kind of distracting in that sense where I'm like, am I supposed to feel for him, or am I supposed to feel for Hemsworth? Oh, okay, later on in the film it all comes together, and I get that, but it just felt kind of rocky and a little imbalanced. Like, maybe if you wanted to make both of them co-stars, I think that would have fit what they ended off doing better. What the final product was, I think that would have been better had you elevated both characters, maybe even done like parallel shots. This is what Tyler's doing in the meantime. This is what the other guy's doing. Fine. But because of that imbalance, I was like, oh, okay, I see that this guy is threatened in the beginning, but then we don't see him for a while, so I stopped caring. Then I'm paying more attention to Tyler and I'm trying to focus on him. Then the guy comes back and I'm like, wait, now you're showing me his family? And okay, so let me forget about Tyler and start paying attention to him. And it was just kind of a juggling act, for me. So in that sense, I just didn't really care too much of how the structure was in how they portrayed both characters.
It reminded me a little bit of like because I do see what EMan is talking about with imbalance, or just kind of the question: is this a co-leader? Is this a co-protagonist? Yeah, it reminded me of like not to bring another Avenger in here, but it reminded me of Snowpiercer with Bong Joon-ho and Chris Evans, where Song Kang-ho's like warrior character who kind of is like your heavy next to Hemsworth helping him go through those train cars might as well be your second, badass hero person that you wish you could learn more about, other than just being the one really cool ethnic guy next to Chris Evans. There was a layer of that. I think I was okay, like Ian was at the beginning, because we've seen that trope done before of the let me show you the end and then send you back, and then you're going to meet back to this place again. What I liked about it working in this movie was in 90% of those movies that we see, that our heroes going to be just fine. You're confident he's going to get there. There's going to be some little adversity here and there that you watch him in, and the movie develops what that adversity is, and then you get to the end, and you're like, oh, okay, it's wrap up time. Whereas this one, you know, you think you're watching that kind of moment happen, and then the movie unfolds where it is this second character and this second, you know, I don't want to say adversity, but it is this second part to it, and you have all these characters that now have a little bit more that matter to them, where if the stakes are higher enough where it is life and death, now all of a sudden there is an uncertainty of like, wait a second, we're going to go back to this spot and I'm not sure if anybody's going to be okay, you know, good guy, bad guy, or otherwise, where that scene doesn't just become a tease, it becomes a, this is just barely what you could be. Wait till you get here and you see why. And I think the movie is not super duper Michael Mann level heat about building something like grandiose crime, you know, epic up, but it made that by the time you get to that big finale, enough has been spun up and built that it's a little deeper than you thought it was going to be the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, and I think I want to get to that issue of depth because there's so much going on here, I think, beyond just your standard action thriller. You know, I think we talked about this a bit about the movie Onward. This film, oddly enough, I think is sort of the perfect Father's Day movie, not just because it's an action, you know, adventure that a lot of guys would probably be into, but because there's so many types of fathers in this movie. You've got, you know, obviously Chris Hemsworth, and we'll just say it. He had a 6-year-old kid who died of leukemia, but he wasn't there for him because he was off doing, you know, missions around the world or whatever. You've got the obvious connection of the drug dealer's son who's kidnapped, but you've also got the Minder character who's in between, who's more of a father figure to this boy, and you've got my God, why can't I think of his name? I just said it. The Minder. What was his name? The second mercenary.
The second mercenary, Saju.
Saju, yes. So you've got him off on this mission to ostensibly save his own son, but he's also in the process of trying to rescue his sort of adoptive, you know, son. And I think if this had been more of a traditional structure, kind of like what you're talking about, EMan, where there's more of a balance, I think we've seen that before. And I think, you know, we could, if this movie had The Rock in it, I think you would have had that, where you would have had another probably name actor that by the end, when they're both on that bridge, they would have been radioing back and forth like, yeah, looks like this might be the end, buddy. Oh, I got you. Let's go take him out, you know, slugger, you know. But we don't. They're both fighting for the same thing, but they never really get to, you know, have that big bonding moment. Like, I guess we were on the same side after all, you know, kind of a thing. I like that. Yeah. And I think it's not something we've seen before.
No, I'm totally with you on that. The only thing I would even add to it is just more screen time. That's all. Like just another shot or two, you know, just so that we can get to know this other character. That's all. That's all I needed. I didn't need. Definitely don't want the bromance at the very end, you know, in the middle of a shootout. Like I'm totally fine if you get rid of a lot of the action tropes. You know, that's totally fine. I was just saying, like, for me, it's just a question of focus. Who do you want me to care for? Because when you show me something and you show me other layers of a character, that's going to create a bond in this moment that we're watching. And if you're showing it to me at a disproportionate amount of time, it's going to affect my attention and my level to resonate with the character. So for me, just add a little more screen time. That's all, and it would have been fine.
Would you trade that screen time away from David Harbour, our second build guy who wastes a lot of middle?
100%, yes, because I have no idea why he was there. He literally could have been anyone else.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I don't know what he added to this movie.
Yeah. I know why he was there. It's because Stranger Things is on Netflix, and this probably has something to do with the contract, you know?
And they're all in the MCU now, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait.
Red
David
Guardian.
Harbour's... Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking...
Thor.
Yeah, man, that's even a second layer, because I was just thinking of, the people who remember that David Harbour played Hellboy for a hot minute. He and Thor cracking whiskey or whatever. That I want to go back to Saju for a brief second, because EMan, you mentioned that he disappears and he comes back. If I remember, because it was like a week ago I watched this, the part where he comes back, he's sort of checking into a hotel, and I swear to God, I was having flashbacks to the first Terminator, because he like checks in, the guy gives him a funny look. We see him like turn on the little overhead light in the bathroom, and he's fixing his broken nose. He might as well have just been taking a scalpel to his eyeball. It was the same scene. But no, with David Harbour, I liked that he played this character, because I feel like that's a very specific kind of character. But I hate that in a movie that is giving you what you've seen before, but in a different way. I feel like this is one of the few times where they give you everything you've seen before exactly as you've seen it before. Because I'm like, okay, yeah, he's selling out his friend, and they're gonna fight to the death, and it's gonna be over. Because he was in the movie for 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
your
but
it was
failed
like
romance that we didn't want.
I feel like the reason that failed was because he wasn't highlighted. Like there was no like the betrayal had no payoff. I didn't care. I like when it happened, I was like, I just met this guy, in this thing. Yes, okay, he saved Tyler's life or whatever, but when you give like these quick one-liners and stuff, that's not enough to really help with the emotional impact that you want to happen with the more traumatic action of betrayal. Now had David Harbour's character been there from the beginning, maybe if he was one of the handlers or one of the contacts to, hey, I welcomed you into India, or I got you this and this, and I helped you out earlier in the movie, and now I'm betraying you. Now it feels like a betrayal for us, the audience, as well. And all of that was missed. I'm just like, you're kind of expendable at this point because of how superficially you were added into this film. So, I was fine with him just going, but didn't add anything to the movie to me.
Yeah, the only thing I thought showed some bit of promise was almost a throwaway line where he mentioned that he had a wife who was, I guess, Bangladeshi. She was a local. That's why he's living there. And I can't remember if he said something like, this would be really, if they find out that I'm hiding you, if I don't cooperate, it's gonna be bad for her, because she's a local, and everyone knows that she's there and she could be in danger. I could kind of appreciate that, but it was just, there was nothing built on it. It's just they're killing each other 2 seconds later. Or I think didn't Ovi shoot him?
Yeah,
and that was the whole big traumatic moment for him, which that look on his face. And I did appreciate David Harbour's death scene, just kind of slumping into the chair and having his death rattle. I thought that was pretty cool.
I felt like they could have done that better too. I mean, just like, first of all, you're a trained mercenary, trained soldier. You see not like a little kid. It's not like Ovi was 6, 7 years old. You're charging at him with a loaded gun pointing at you. Come on now. Like, that's just, if it was during a scuffle and, he was attacking, Hemsworth, and he's like, stop it. Then he shoot. Fine. That was just a terrible, I know it's only like 5 seconds, but like, whatever. Now, when he slumps down and he just, dies, okay, good performance, but just that little part. I'm like, dude, reshoot that. Like, what are you doing? That was terrible. That was not. Who does that?
Like,
what trained military person does that?
Yeah,
he was overconfident. And he was drunk.
No,
and it's David Harbour.
Just got done talking about how serious the situation was, about how you wanted to protect your family, which means you have something to lose. What he did is something that people that don't have something to lose would do. It made no sense.
And he monologued like a Pixar villain.
Right. Let me tell you my whole plan.
That's an excellent. Both of you guys made excellent points.
He's dead weight.
Yeah, it is. It is the part that feels really out of place, I think, in this movie, is that little exchange. And I don't think, what did his character or that little sidebar do to advance the story, or is it just like a little side quest? I don't think there was. I feel like you could have cut that out and it would have been the same movie.
No, I think he helps give Tyler's background, right? Like, I know your history, I know about your son, like, and that comes out in their conversations, which Ovi listens to, and like it's a door opener for the heart of Hemsworth. But Nah,
Yeah,
man.
and I think not only that, but it's also there to help inform and distinguish the moral character of Tyler because they're
Yeah.
both mercenaries. They're both in that business. So when, Harbor's character is like, "Hey man, I'm getting you a whole lot of money. This is what we do. Why are you getting feelings all of a sudden?" Now it's kind of like, okay, Hemsworth is no longer of the same breed of these other mercenaries. Now he has a heart. Now he cares more than just the job. So, you know,
I would
again,
argue
yeah, go ahead.
I would argue that you could still take that out and have it be the same. You can get that message simply in the casting. Because as much as I love Hemsworth in this movie, there is something about him, and not just because he's been playing a superhero good guy for the last, 12 years or whatever. It's just that he doesn't look like the guy. He looks like a guy who can have a troubled past, but not as someone who is morally compromised. He's the kind of cuddly mercenary. Is like, yeah, I do jobs for money around the world, but I just go and save people. I've
Yeah.
never had to like execute a child or anything like that because the pay was really good. I just feel like it's that sort of uncommunicated visual language, like, oh, he's okay.
Now, in addition to that, that's totally fine. Let me just say, you did not need David Harbour's character scene and moment at all, because in that same sense of trying to elevate Tyler's, moral compass or whatever, you could have taken that scene out, that whole scene, and you could have just had it be that conversation with him and his handler where he's like, "Hey, look, forget about the money. We need to get the boy to safety," which they present that later in the film, and
Yeah.
that served the same purpose. It was fine.
Yeah.
You could have taken those 10 minutes out of the movie, and we still would have came away with the same feeling of, oh man, he's got a heart, or he's going above and beyond, and bolster up his character as much as you like.
I agree with
And that
that.
and that's what I was getting at when I asked the question, because I felt like that was the case, but I didn't know if there was some other detail or something that happened that would have been, you got the 500-piece puzzle and you've got 499 in, and you realize one got swallowed up by the vacuum cleaner. It just doesn't complete the picture. But I think, yeah, we get enough with the surrounding material that, yeah, we could have cut out David Harbour. Although I did like him in the part and that little exchange, I felt like it
Sure.
was from a lesser, like it was like an earlier draft of the script that just somehow made it in. Yeah, so let's kind of jump ahead to, we already teased the end, the big bridge climax that takes up like a quarter of the movie that I'm totally fine with. It's very exciting, and there's a lot of death and carnage and some really cool. Is that the scene where Hemsworth takes the two grenades and throws them into the the portholes on the armored vehicle and it just blows up, or was that
It
earlier?
was right before the bridge scene.
Okay.
Hmm.
I thought that seemed like something out of Indiana Jones, and hell, it might have been, but it's just
Yeah.
it's a moment where it's like, wow, that's really cool, but also you think about the horror of the people on the inside. They think they're so impenetrable, and also, why are you putting these completely open portholes on a tank that you can just do that? You didn't have to break any glass. You just like, oh
Well,
look,
No.
the tank clearly has to breathe. So, you know, there's
put
that.
those put that on the top, not like on the side where like someone walking by,
Right.
like whoop.
I don't know. I mean, look, the one thing that I thought was kind of missing, and it was a missed opportunity at least, was the fact that like these people were not necessarily bad per se. Like they were police officers or military officials that were working under the pressure of this
Yeah.
crime syndicate, this crime drug lord who literally a colonel, was afraid of him. So it's kind of like I don't think they highlighted that enough to kind of show that like, okay, these people are fighting, but like it's not like they really want to. It's not like, see, it would have been a little bit different had all these people been just part of the mob. If they were just henchmen of the mob, the motivation is a shared collective mindset. But when you have military folks and police officers, going into these things, it was kind of like, ooh, I kind of feel bad for that random beat cop who, has to go find this boy and find Hemsworth, or his family might die too. But
I get what you're saying, and I wonder if some of this, I haven't read the comic book either, but we've seen those kind of Mexican and South American, action movie stories of corruption where everybody's on the take. Now,
sure.
I don't know that there are any beat cops, to your point, E-Man, who are on that bridge scene or carrying out a lot of this, because they're like in tactical gear. I mean, they're pretty damn good at killing people.
I took them as like the SWAT team or something, but it
Sure,
could have been the military. I don't know.
right, but you get the impression, and I'm normally on board with you, and the thought did cross my mind while I was watching this. When you get these movies with the faceless cop characters who are all, at the mercy of the evil doer, and they're, hunting the good guy, I'm like, yeah, these are people with families, and there's a bit more dimension to it. I'm not a fan of it. I did think about that in this, but then I was wondering, well, we're not quite, the information we're given is that the level of corruption within this government structure, and maybe it's kind of racist. I have no idea if it's just this perception of like, yeah, everybody just works for the drug dealers in those, third world shithole countries or whatever. I'd like to think there's a bit more sensitivity to it than that, but given the information we have in this movie, we're just kind of asked to accept, oh yeah, they're going up against Chris Hemsworth, who's trying to save a little kid. They have to be evil. Yeah, that kind of sucks. But given the fact that they are literally faceless, I think they're all wearing those shield masks. They might as well have been drones or robots or stormtroopers or something.
Sure.
Yeah. Wow. There is no dimension to any of these like lower level henchmen, is there?
I mean,
only the kids. Only the indoctrinated
right.
kids.
The kids are the only people that are humanized in a sense.
Yeah.
They have some depth to them, but yeah, I mean, but that's a typical action thing. I mean, can you really imagine watching like a Rambo movie, and you're sitting here really thinking about all the people that he's cut their throats and their families and stuff? No, it's easier to digest when you don't know who the bad guys are, and you could just say, nope, they're bad. Okay, moving on.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up Rambo, not just because we lost Brian Dennehy last week, but also in the Rambo movies, from what I recall of them, he tends to be taking on very specific bad guys he's like taking on Al Qaeda or something in Rambo 3 or whoever they were, in Afghanistan or, just the very particular things. It's rare that I think he was taking on entire government apparatuses like we're seeing in this movie. So it does take that deft touch. I think you need to spell it out, like have it be more localized. Like this is a drug dealer. It is his private army. Maybe the colonel's on the take, but is there political strife within that apparatus? We're going way deeper, I think, than this movie.
have we?
warrants.
And it's funny you mentioned
True.
this, and I will continue this tangent. Have we had a movie yet about from the henchman's perspective? Because I'd be very curious about a movie, and I'm almost wondering if that would have to be a comedy, or if it would have to be something, like an animated thing where, like, what's it like to just be a henchman? Do you sign up for an agency? Do you go from one, crime mob to another? Is the hero, as you had mentioned earlier, are they perceived as the villain? From that perspective, I just think it'd be kind of interesting, to see something like that.
I'm disappointed. We've had an entire franchise based on this. They're called the Minions. Hello.
That's not it.
I think it's close. No, that's close. It's okay.
I think a different angle and a different comparison could be made with, like, I know we brought it up earlier, like 1917, but those are two underling soldiers who aren't Captain John Miller, played by Tom Hanks, who's been, has clout, has status, has guys behind him that follow him, and they're on this very specific mission to save a movie star. Where it's just, hey, I need you to get this message over to this battlefield, how many kilometers away, and you got to do it by morning. And they're kind of two borderline nameless guys who, all right, they have to do a solo mission, but they're still kind of underlings. They're not gonna become war heroes. They're not going to get parades named after them that, we don't even know if they're going to make it out of the movie, and one of them doesn't. So
Spoiler.
That's the closest I got.
I need lawyer. I need lower than that. Like lower. Like
No,
literally
it needs lower than that. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't
Because
know
those guys
because
can be still heroes in a sense.
Yeah.
I'm talking about someone that's like literally an extra. Like they are like in terms of
I
their
got one for you.
role. Go ahead.
I got one for you. Wally.
But Wally's
one
kind of a
little-
hero though. He's still a
Made a
hero.
All right, then it's the short film on the
Henchmen are
deleted
not
scenes of Wally's
heroes.
where you watch the one little robot who has to repair the broken lights on the edge of this big ship. Have you seen
What's his life like?
What's
his life like?
all he does is replace light bulbs, and he gets mad when they keep going out the same one, So I don't know, but you're right. You got to go lower. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the new Star Wars trilogy, we've got Finn, who used to like scrub toilets on the Death Star, or whatever, and now he's like a stormtrooper and resistance hero. No, but
oh no, you're giving him too high of a rank now. All he does is scream people's names. He doesn't do shit in those.
That's about the most he does.
Yeah, I mean, much like Han Solo, Finn died at the end of Force Awakens.
Got out in the right time.
Yeah, I think that's I would like to see that movie where it's from the henchman's point of view. And even the closest I was thinking is sort of John Wick, which is a movie about people in the underworld where, like, if there was a John Wick spinoff about like the so-called homeless people that all of a sudden are pulling out cell phones and like machine guns and stuff when they get the new bounty, that would be kind of fun. Sure. But I don't know. I think we're still waiting for that to be made.
They're doing a TV show on it, on the Continental, on the hotel.
Wow. Cool. So is that going to be like
the concierge?
It's like an expansion of the movie.
So is it like every week someone checks into a different room and they've got to avoid being assassinated or something?
Sure. I don't know. I've always been more interested in them expanding that John Wick world, so I'll be curious just to see what they do with it.
I'm down for it. Is that in production or is that? I mean, I guess it's all people.
It might be early development, but it was announced. I want to say like a year ago, so I have no idea what stage they're in now.
All right. Well, we're getting far afield here, so I want to kind of wrap this up by fast forwarding to the end. And what I mentioned, this is full spoiler territory, so if you really don't want to know how Extraction ends, turn this off now. 3, 2, 1, go away. Tyler Rake gets shot and tore up a whole bunch, but there's a kill shot from the Colonel, I believe, right before he gets killed. It's not the Colonel. Oh, was it the
boy?
Was it the boy? Okay.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember. Because the boy lives, right? He just runs away when people start coming after him as revenge. Okay, I gotcha.
Ovi?
No, the
other.
Scarface. Yeah, Farhan. Okay, that's right. That was a nice little callback because he's like, I want to be the one to put the bullet in him, and he does. The Colonel was trying to go after him. I get it. So Tyler Rake doesn't make it, and he's holding his neck, and he dramatically throws himself over the bridge into the water, which thematically ties into the scenes of him with his son on the beach, which I instantly thought is Ridley Scott preparing a lawsuit, because those earlier shots were straight out of Gladiator, like his hands going over the shit. But at the very end, when we see Ovi is back to his normal life and he's swimming in the pool, he comes up and we see the shadowy, like kind of blurred out in the background figure of a guy in a baseball cap, standing in the distance. Now, are we to believe, and this is where I'm relying on your interpretation, that Tyler Rake somehow survived, or is it sort of like how Tyler was having these phantom visions of the person that he lost? Is this Ovi sort of hanging on to this father figure that he, knew for a day and a half?
It could definitely be both, right? Because they planted enough stuff in there to make either one valid. I mean, I thought it was a bit of a stretch that they had Ovi jumping in the water and him having his own momentary of aquatic zen, because it's not like he knew Tyler like that to
Yeah.
mimic that, because then it would have been like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. So that part made me feel more of like, okay, now the directors are the directors doing something to push that comparison, intentionally and not naturally, because again, who does stuff like that? But whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
It's for
that
us, not for the
parallel.
characters. Yeah.
Exactly. And the parallel is certainly there of having the blurry figure who is more of a part of their maybe emotional trauma, in a sense. But at the same time, there is the possibility that Tyler made it. It's possible. I mean, he had a neck wound. Maybe I don't know which artery it might have hurt or not. There was a team there. Maybe somebody got to him in time. Don't know.
I'm gonna be real pissed if he lived.
Why?
Because finally, we have a badass movie with badass characters who actually fucking die. Finally, like they're supposed to.
The last one that happened and I thought was extremely. It hurt me as a kid because that's when I watched it, but later I appreciated it. Leon, the professional.
Mm.
Because when that happened, I was hurt. I was devastated. But now I can appreciate, like, man, that was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and that's a great comparison, because I think much like the professional, there's so much gunfire and violence that the rat-a-tat-tat of like gunfire almost becomes the second score, or maybe even the first score of this movie. And it is such a burn the entire world to the ground experience that when you do have your main character goes out in this sort of, sad poetic way, I think it's a great capper. And at the same time, I would like to see Chris Hemsworth do more movies like this. Hell, he could even do a movie where it's like, oh, my name's Fred Rake. My brother was a mercenary in India, and we're both in the same line of work. I would like to see that. I don't necessarily want to see him come back for another adventure as this character, because I like the idea of having some finality to it. The only thing that's keeping me on the hook as far as maybe he's not really dead, which I think is kind of stupid, because he was in pretty bad shape before he fell off that bridge, and everybody took the helicopters and got the hell out of there. So it's not like, hey, maybe we should send a medevac crew to fish him out of the water. But he, in that blurry background shot, if I remember correctly, it looks like he's like in a baseball cap and a jacket or something, kind of like a Steve Rogers undercover type of thing.
Avengers. See, that's their gear, man. That's their uniform for undercover work.
Oh boy.
Right, but why would Ovi be imagining him looking like that? Like, if this is just a fantasy projection, I would imagine him like
looking the way he remembered.
Yeah, in his merc gear. So I'm not.
That's a good point. Different clothes. Like, why would he?
If that movie ends 8 seconds earlier with Ovi underwater, just having a Zen moment, credits hit, music splash, I'm fine. You're done.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't rug tease, rug pull some dumb stuff like what we're talking about.
He's back. I mean, look, you it's an insurance policy for these movies. Let's just be honest.
True. I mean, I get that. Yeah.
If this movie bombs, no, he really did die. But if not, well, see, he was in the vision, the blurry guy. So yeah, it was gonna happen regardless. I mean, when I saw it, I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. Like I'm not gonna fight this. I'm not about to sit here and petition it. I'm not gonna protest. I'm not giving it more energy. It delivered what it needed to. And to Ian's earlier point about seeing Hemsworth do things. I mean, he's done similar work like this before. What was that? Red Dawn or something like that, or whatever. Like, he's done these military movies and stuff before. And while he's not terrible, they don't break out. They don't really do very much. And I think the key thing here to realize with Hemsworth is that he is a director dependent actor. He's not the type of actor that can just jump into even a compelling script and carry it. I mean, Black Hat could have been very interesting had it starred someone else and not him. So, but when you introduce Taika Waititi, into a franchise that Hemsworth has already been in, and all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Waititi brought out so much out of Hemsworth that we just didn't know was possible with the comedic stuff and all that." So, and Hargrave, I would say, brought up a better side of the action prowess, that we can really, that we've always wanted from Hemsworth. So at this point, I think he just really needs the right director to emphasize the things that he really can do well, and he probably needs a little bit more hand holding, But whether he continues doing this, I wouldn't mind if they did a sequel. I wouldn't mind it. I would need a much more compelling story, though. I need a much better story. I need a little bit more character development, just so, because if we're gonna take this journey with this guy again, we got to get to know each other a little bit more. But yeah, that's I don't really foresee it happening, but I wouldn't mind if it did.
Yeah, I would much rather just see these guys team up to do another action movie with him, at the helm. Because we've seen that, in the 80s. It was like, Schwarzenegger and Stallone made the exact same movie like 47 times in the 80s, and no one, I don't think, very few of them were sequels.
Right.
But no, I love, I don't know if you've coined a new phrase here, director dependent actor, but I think that's a perfect way of describing, because I think the Thor example is perfect, because no one gave a shit about Chris Hemsworth as Thor until Waititi kind of stepped in. I mean, with Thor: The Dark World, and then of course, we've got drunk Thor and the Avengers, and turning that cartoonish performance into something with some real weight, and that was not a joke about his dad bod. Yeah, good stuff, man. Well, Don, what's your final thought on John Wick 4? I'm sorry, John Wick 4 Extraction.
John Wick 4 Extraction. No, it's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's a good roller coaster ride that you get to have at home on Netflix. It's a glamour project for Hemsworth, and he could use one because he's going to have to do some of these things to get away from always playing Thor. Now, I like the chances he's taken in little roles here, little roles there. Like, I think he's the funniest part of the Ghostbusters movie we had 3-4 years ago. But he still kind of is. He's either a wackadoodle or he's doing this. So he has. I think director dependence is a great way of putting it. Where until he's given some material or some trust to have material, we're gonna just keep having him be, the himbo more than anything. So I'm glad he's proven himself step by step to have a little bit more to him. I feel like he's more Patrick Swayze than he is Keanu Reeves. Like at some point, Hemsworth is going to get his hands on something legitimately compelling and do something good with it. But if in the meantime, he can just be zen and cool, and that works for me. Like, because you're right. Go ahead and make 40 more of these where you're just fun. Yeah, and put them on Netflix. Let's watch them every other Friday, and that's good enough for me. I don't need a sequel to this. Let Joe Russo go write another good comic and bring it to the screen himself. I like what this movie will be as a springboard for all these first-time filmmakers, because when I was looking through those cast and crew credits, like director Sam Hargrave, like there's a lot of people here who are getting their first crack at the bigger job above their usual job title. You have stunt performers who get to be coordinators. You have set directors who get to be production designers. You have assistant orchestrators who get to be full-time composers. You have a stunt coordinator being a director. Like, this is going to make everybody here. This is the training wheels that they're all going to use to get better at what they do, and we're going to have some future good action filmmakers coming. And I like that. I like that this can be a springboard for a lot of people, including Hemsworth.
Cool. That's very well stated. And I totally agree. I think for a project from a bunch of quote unquote first timers, or the big swing at the fences shot, it is a hell of an attempt. So
yeah.
A couple of nitpicks aside, I was very surprised by Extraction. And it's the best action movie you won't see in theaters this year.
Boom! Put on the poster.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you again very much for talking about a Netflix movie with me. This is kind of becoming a thing. So, yeah, let's keep it going. Anything else? Anything to look forward to in the next little bit? What are you guys excited about coming up on streaming?
Oh, are you still gonna try Arkansas with Vince Vaughn and John Malkovich and all those people and crews?
I think
You
we're
hopping?
talking about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That looks like some good Southern fried cheese. I'm in for that.
Yeah.
I will not be watching that.
Right.
I do. I feel like I will be watching. What is this? All Night and a Day or All Day and a Night. It's got the kid from Moonlight in there, Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah.
You
Good
know,
pick.
it does look like an interesting film. You know, at this point, I'm more interested in watching more of the series than anything than the straight up films. I mean, Money Heist has gotten all of my attention. It is probably one of the best things on Netflix by
What
far.
what's that one? I don't know if I
Money
know that
Money
one.
Heist.
Yeah.
Money
I don't
Heist.
know.
Yeah. Oh, I thought we talked about it. No, Money Heist is an absolute must watch. It comes from Spain. I want to say it's based on a true story, but basically it's like this group of criminals, or yeah, criminals who are led by this guy named the Professor, and they do a very elaborate heist where they rob, I think, the Bank of Spain or something like that. But it's much deeper than that. It's not just, hey, we want to get some money. It's more of like, we also want to make a political statement along the way. And there are a lot of, it's a mixture of, if you've watched Prison Break, you know, if you
Mm.
enjoyed Prison Break, it has a lot of those elements in it. Um, it's got some Breaking Bad in it as well. You know, like the way Walter White was that intelligent guy that you kind of start feeling sympathetic for, even though he's doing bad things. Like that's kind of what the professor is, except at a higher level. There are some cultural differences. People are gonna have to kind of just take with the bumps and bruises. Like there, and I kind of tell people this with all foreign, properties. Like there are going to be certain things that people do that don't make sense to us because we don't have those cultural ideals,
Mm.
so, and a random example, Train to Busan, you might have some old person throw themselves, at the zombies to protect everyone else when they really didn't have to.
Mm.
But because in Korean culture, Asian culture, that's an honorable thing to do, it's something that in those audiences they will respect and honor that action, while we in the States will be like, why did you just throw your life away? Like you could have just exited out and lived just fine. But anyway, so outside of that, the show is absolutely enthralling and just exciting. The biggest key advice I could give to anyone while you're watching it, there are 4 seasons right now. Only watch up to season 2. um Season 2 has a natural break at the end of it, where the story takes a nice natural pause. It picks up in season 3, but season 3 starts a story that's clearly not going to be finished until maybe season 5, and season 5 is not out yet. So I don't want you to watch it, love it, because you will love it, and then be stuck on this cliffhanger like I am, waiting for season 5, and I'm regretting, because it's easy to binge through, but if you stop after season 2, you'll be satisfied. It's a good contained story, and then when season 5 drops, binge away. But yes, Money Heist on Netflix, number one show to watch.
That's great advice. I probably will just try and watch all 4 seasons because my version of binging is watching one show a week. That's about all I have time for. So by the
Mine
time I
too.
catch up with
Do that with
it,
this
season
show.
5 will have come and gone. Yeah.
I don't know if you could do that with this, because the way they leave you after every episode, it, you'll be left in a state of shock most times, that when Netflix is like, play next episode, you won't have time to react to say like stop, because you're like, no, go. So good luck.
All
If you
right.
could do it once a week,
Okay.
man, that's kudos to you.
The Money Heist Challenge. All right. I like it.
Yep.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, again, thank you very much, and we'll talk about something. The whole. I'm determined to get the whole gang back together, Earth's Mightiest Critics, to talk about something. So we'll have to do that. But for having quote unquote just the three of us here tonight, I think it's a lot of fun. So thank you, and we'll talk soon.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Bye.